Okay, so this is a simple video on ratio. I'm going to go through everything, so from the basics to, I don't know, 3-point ratios, how to convert ratios into fractions, how you figure out how much someone has if they have more than someone else. So we'll start with the basics. So let's say Mel and Chris share £80 in a ratio of 3 to 5. So we first need to identify the ratio. So we know that Mel is going to be the 3 and Chris is going to be the 5, because the wording of the question will word them in the way that the ratio should be. So Mel 3, Chris 5. So the way we do this is we take the ratio and we find the total, which will be 8 units of ratio, and then we divide the total units against the amount that they share. So we'll do 80 divided by 8, which gives us £10. So now we know that £10 equals 1 unit of ratio. So then we just take their numbers. So Mel will have 3 units, so do 10 times 3, that's 30. So now we know that Mel has £30. And then the other one's pretty straightforward, it's 5 units, so you do 10 times 5, which is 50, and then Chris will have £50. Obviously you'll have to show you working, so something similar to this. But that's a basic ratio. But if we want to take it to the next level, we could say something like, so Mel and Chris share some money, and we'll do it the same ratio, so it's money in the ratio of 3 to 5. But the question's telling us if Chris receives £40, how much did they share in the first place? So the way we do this is quite simple. So we take Chris's amount, so his 5 units, because we know that he gets £40. So we divide this £40 by Chris's units, which will give us £8. And now we know that this £8 is 1 unit of ratio, because we've taken his units with the amount of money he has got, and we just divided it to find 1 unit. So now we know that Mel will have 3 times 8 because she has 3 units, so she'll have £24. Oh, that's a minus, £24. And then we of course know that Chris will have the 40, so all you do is 24 plus 40, then you get your total, which was £64. So that's what happens if you get a question like that. Now we can make this even more tricky. We could say that Chris receives a bit more than Mel. So let's say once again, Mel and Chris, you know what, I'll just copy and paste it. Mel and Chris share some money in the same ratio of 3 to 5. So to share that bad boy, then let's say, I don't know, Chris receives £14 more than Mel. So instead of knowing what he has altogether, we know how much more he has than Mel. Now the way we do this is once again quite simple. So what we do is we take the 5 and we take the 3 and we just minus them, so we get 2, because we need to figure out what this difference is between their ratio, and it's going to be 2 units. So then all we do is we divide the 14 by the 2, so it's half of 14, which is 7. So now we know that 1 unit of ratio is 7, because all we're trying to find is the difference in that ratio, which is 2, because 3 plus 2 equals 5, and then we just divide that by the amount that Chris has more to get the £7. And now we can just figure out how much Mel receives. So she has 3 units, so all we do is 3 times 7, 21, and we know that Mel receives £21. Okay, and that's the basics of ratio. It's not really going to get any more tricky than that, unless we file in a third person. So let's say Mel, Chris, and Will share some sweets. Okay, they're sharing some sweets. Chris gets 3 times the amount that Mel has. However, Will gets 2 times the amount that Chris gets. However, we need a base amount to work these out. So what the question will probably do, they usually will do this, they'll give you what the ratio is. So let's just say it's Mel's sweets, we'll do Chris's sweets, and then you got Will's sweets. And then it will give you what this ratio will equal. So I don't know, let's do it will equal 1 to n to m. Let's just say that we'll do 1 to n to x, just so it's easier to read. So we know that Mel's sweets is 1, we know that Chris's sweets is n, and we know that Will's sweets are x. So we have an amount which is 1. Now Chris gets 3 times the amount as Mel, so Chris's 1 sweet is 3 times to Mel's. So all we need to do is 1 times 3. 3 sweets, so we know that Mel has 3 sweets, that's pretty straightforward. And then we know that Will gets 2 times the amount that Chris gets. So we know that, oh sorry, I made a mistake. Chris, that's Chris obviously, because we know Mel's sweets. That's Chris's sweets. So then we just times Chris's amount by 2 to get 6. So we know that Will has 6 sweets. That's probably very straightforward. They may give you a bit of a trickier one just so you use your calculator. Well, no, you don't have a calculator, do you? So you use your head. It might be something, I don't know. Mel will have 5 sweets. Someone wants 3 times, so you have to do 5 times 3, blah, blah, blah. But that's basically what you do in that situation. So we know, I'll just go over it again. So we know that Chris gets 3 times the amount of Mel, because it says it there. Mel has 1 sweet, so obviously it's going to be 3 times 1 to get the 3 for Chris. Will gets 2 times the amount of Chris. We know Chris has 3, so it'll be 6, because 3 times 2 is 6. Now, sometimes in ratio questions, you'll get fractions, because they tend to go hand in hand, ratios, fractions, decimals, blah, blah, blah. So you might get something, Mel and Chris share sweets in a ratio of 1 to 3. So you got the 1 to 3 there. Then you may be asked what fraction does the total of Mel receive? Or wait, there should be what fraction of the total does Mel receive? So we know that Mel receives 1, but we need to figure out the total amount that's being received in the ratio. So we do 1 plus 3, which is 4, pretty straightforward. And we know that this 4, this total of the ratio, will always be the denominator of the fraction. So I don't know how I'm going to write this. So we know that that 4 is always going to be the bottom. Now we know Mel receives 1, so that'll be the numerator. So whatever Mel receives will always be the numerator. Always. And then whatever the total of the ratio is will always be the denominator. Like always. It will always be the denominator. So if we figure out the total is 4. Mel receives 1, so it will be 1 over 4. Pretty straightforward. It's going to be a quarter. And that's really it. That's all you'll get in terms of ratios. It's pretty straightforward. It's not rocket science, but it's when you get things like this, it's where they word the question like, so Chris will receive more than Mel. So you do, your 5 minus 3 to get the 2 difference. Then you figure out what 1 unit is by dividing this 2 by the 14, which is in the question. So as long as you just, what I do is I'll pick out the question, I'll pick out all the numbers, put them in like a row. So I know that there's going to be 14 more, I know that Chris has 3, Mel has 5. As long as you organise your question like that, it'll be fine. Now, I'm going to give you some questions to do. Give me the answers, so I can mark it for you. So, I don't know. I'll word it different for you. So, let's say, Harley and Lucy share some sweets in the ratio of 7 to 4. Okay? Harley, however, got 21 more sweets than Lucy. But Maya, so it's just some random girl called Maya thinks Lucy got 12 sweets because, and then we show her working that she did. So she did, 21 divided by 7 equals 3. Then 3 times 4 is 12. Now, do you agree? This question here, it's pretty easy to tackle. What I would always do with these questions, never agree with this statement, because most of the time it's going to be wrong, and you're going to have to figure out what the amount that Lucy has. So what I would do is just work out the ratio as we've done in these examples. Just work out the ratio for yourself, get your answer, and if it's different, then just explain that, well, it's this number because I did this working out. Okay. And then I'll give you this question, which is, there are between 20 and 38 students in a class, so 20 and 38. The ratio of girls to boys is 5 to 7. How many students could there be in the class? Now, with this question, you need to think about this statement. There are between 20 and 38 students, so we don't know the exact amount of students. However, you can take these totals, do what we do with the ratio, and work out the answer. Now, if you need any help with these, just let me know. But I think it's pretty straightforward ratios. Come back to me when you've finished, and then I'll give you some work on equations. Bye.